Through the prayers of Holy Father, so Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. Good evening. For those who are not familiar, my name is Father Joseph Swaden. I've worked in Orthodox apologetics since 1998 and the founder of NFTU True Orthodox and Ecumenical News since 2004. We've been in the apologetic space on Facebook since 2016, and on YouTube since 2018. Today I have a kind of a different program. First off, good evening to everyone who is watching live. I will not be addressing the comment section. We have quite a bit to talk about today. Real quick, I'll just get right into it. Earlier today, I assume in response to increased numbers of people finding out about True Orthodoxy and joining the True Orthodox, Orthodox Ethos released an article, and it just went too far. It is forcing me to make a response because this is going out to thousands of people, and it is probably one of the most evil things I've seen ever put together. And I'm going to try to explain it piece by piece, but as you can see from the title, Elder Ephraim's encounter with a demon-possessed girl and the old calendarist in Canada. We're gonna go through this piece by piece. I may take questions at the end, I may not. But we're gonna get right to it because, frankly, there is a lot that needs to be unpacked here, and it's horrifying. And the fact that the fact that I read it when it was offered to me, someone sent me the article. Shout out to Subdeacon Victorious for that. But I grew increasingly horrified and disgusted with what I had read. I read it, and at first I thought this has to be some sort of joke. The more I thought about it, I realized it wasn't a joke. It was actually something far worse and more insidious, and it needed to be addressed immediately, frankly. So let's get through this. I'm going to fill you in on all the background because there is quite a bit of it. It is as told by Demetrius Panagopoulos during a visit to Philotheo Monastery and translated and shared by Constantine Zalalas. For those who don't know, that includes me up until an hour ago. Demetrius Panagopoulos was a Greek lay preacher who died in 1982. He was not clergy of any sort. He was a lay preacher. I don't even know what that is in that sense. In Greece, apparently very well known. And he died in 1982, and I'm going to hammer that point that he died in 1982 because it is important to the story. So let's get back to the Elder Ephraim thing as we continue on. Okay, we'll skip the picture. It says here, this excerpt was given from a talk at Philotheo Monastery by Demetrius Panagopoulos, a renowned and grace-filled lay preacher in Greece who reposed in 1982. I'm going to make a point of that. After Gerunda Ephraim, and I know it's Yerunda, I just don't feel like saying that in this case because I'm getting more disgusted by the moment. First came to Canada, the United States in 1979 due to the great spiritual need he found there. He continued afterwards to visit the spiritually needy people of these lands to their confessions and to provide much-needed spiritual guidance, consequently remaining for periods of time outside of Philotheo when he served as abbot and Yerunda. This talk was given at Philotheo during a time when Yerunda Ephraim was abroad, in order to encourage the fathers regarding the fruitfulness of Yerunda's missionary labors and to comfort them in the absence of their beloved Yerunda. So I'm gonna just kind of give context. So this is kind of a lay preacher in Greece who is telling this story to the monks of Philotheo, while Elder Ephraim's in Canada and building monasteries and stuff. We all know the story when it comes to that. So I'm not going to deal with this. But we're going to continue on. And it says, Along with the many great things that this Yaranda relayed to me, he said that the Panagya blessed him with great success in his venture, even though this was not intended to be of a missionary purpose. This trip was planned primarily for health reasons. While there, if there was any time left, he would use this time to help with confession and spiritual advice. Some of these souls faced difficult times in that area. However, by the Panagya's blessing, his medical test showed that his health was generally good, so there was no need for hospitalization. So at the time he was expected to spend in the hospital, he would now use to undo some of the damage that Satan caused to the people in that region. So he spoke to me, and I was touched by this humble mindedness. He spoke to this lay preacher. Keep that in mind. He told me where he went, and he followed the program that he had well in advance from here. And I had the opportunity to travel there twice before, and the ground was somewhat prepared. And now what was needed was the presence of a spiritual father to complete the work of the Sermon of Repentance. He told me where he went, and I asked him when he was planning to return, and he told me, I would like to come back now, presuming to go back to the monastery, I guess. And I said, don't you have any time to spare for those people? And he tells me, yes, I do have some time. I told him, why don't you stay there for a while? Why did you want to come back? Do you have a problem at your monastery, or did you receive a phone call, or did you call and were informed that your presence was needed here at the Holy Mountain? Do you have any concerns? Wait, this is confusing because is he telling me that? Okay, so let me see if I understand this correctly. I'm going to read this again. So this is a Greek lay preacher who's in Greece, hanging around in Philotheu. Yaranda, I guess, called him. And so, basically, I guess he's just he's saying to stay in Canada. So he says, do you know, Dimitri, they're inviting me to go everywhere. They're inviting me to go to Vancouver, to the US, to Hawaii. They're calling me to go over. And he asked me, what should I do? Tell me, and whatever you tell me, I'll do. I laughed when the Yaranda told me he'd do whatever I told him. So I said, you must work out the commandment, for the love and love of God you must go. Since our Panagya kept you out of the hospital, then utilize this time to help those people. And his ever so blessed response was, I will do obedience to you, and I will go. I told him, you're going to do obedience to me, a layperson? Yes, he said, I will do obedience to you and not come back. I will stay here for a while. So the man decided to stay, even though I later found out he was grieved greatly at the time because the Christians are divided, at least they were divided back then. Some people belong to the extreme old calendar groups called zealots who consider themselves saved. I have no idea what that means because I don't know of any old calendar groups that consider themselves saved. That's like really kind of a more Protestant thing. There are other old calendar groups that refuse to have communion with other Christians, other churches. They don't commemorate the ecumenical patriarch. And there are the new calendarists. As you can imagine, this man found himself in the middle of all these three quarreling factions. So now, just to give you a little bit of background for those who aren't familiar with the state of Orthodoxy in Canada, Canada has a large Orthodox community, particularly on the East Coast, and this is including true Orthodox. There are well over a dozen true Orthodox parishes throughout Canada, and most of them are in the East. There's a few in the West, but they're very large churches. And this is going to be very important. Just remember, this is from before 1982, and this is a very large area of Orthodox Christians. It's important to the story as we continue. Unfortunately, I found out that the followers of Auxentius spoke against him on public radio. That would be Archbishop Auxentius of blessed memory. But the blessed Yaranda overcame all these obstacles by his known grace-filled actions, because this holy man went and offered himself to help people and bless them and reconcile them with God. The other brothers around him were very saddened by all these reactions, because this holy man went and offered to help people, to bless them and unite them with God. That's all this 20-pound man could ever want. However, the factious brothers were quite ungrateful and their actions were unjustified, offering a bitter cup to this very holy man. However, even though he spoke to me for 20 minutes, he gave me no indication whatsoever that any of this was going on. I had no clue that he had been saddened so deeply, but the fact is he was extremely hurt by the behavior of some of these zealot brothers. Now, this is an important detail because what we're noticing here is supposedly Elder Ephraim's in the midst of all this stuff, and he's not telling this guy, so he obviously is going to tell the guy the real story later on, before 1982. But I would also like to tell you about the great intervention of God's grace in an event that would quickly change the minds of all of those who were divided in this person. What exactly happened? Some evening, after confessing people all day long, his day would stop at 9, 10 o'clock at night. He was invited to a certain home where he was offered something to eat. People would go out of their way to prepare. He was used to some dried bread and some tea anyway. However, it was not unusual to have 2 or 3 or as many as 400 people gather at a house to be next to him. This is often a problem for the homeowners who were not prepared for this type of traffic. Keep these details in mind. Remember what I said. This is before 1982. This is a large Orthodox community, and there are, at this event, hundreds of people. So once you got that in your mind, we can continue. A certain evening, one of the members of this audience was a demon-possessed young lady. This young lady had no idea she was possessed, and no one else knew that this young person was housing demons. She was sitting Indian style on the floor because there were not enough seats. Obviously, people were all over the place, most of them on their knees or on the floor, Indian style. And she was sitting about 10 feet away from the Yerunda. The Yerunda was staring at her in the eyes, and I don't know if he felt something or if he had some information from above that in this girl was a nest of Satan. I don't know. But the fact is, he was staring at her constantly. He pierced her with his eyes, and in a few seconds she began to tremble. The Yerunda then knew that he had company. And what company? A close encounter of the demon kind. The movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind had just come out in this period, so clearly that is a timed reference. The Yerunda, being very experienced in this matter, continued to talk, cool and collected. But the demon could not take it anymore and began to roar. Give me one moment. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay. These people were terrified. They had no idea that these things can happen in the 20th century. They couldn't believe their eyes. They were citizens of a large city, a large and modern city. The last thing they would think about was the existence of demons. But now the demon was disturbed and began to shout and to roar and to verbally abuse the Yerunda. I want to... Supposedly, we're dealing with really, really pious Orthodox people, and there's hundreds of them lined up for confession, but apparently no one believes in demons. The stuff beggars belief as we continue. But okay, so the demon starts yelling, and he's going, "You have no business coming here. Now you're causing me great grief, and you're taking my people away from me." Now, the men who were witnessing all this, and up to now had refused to go to confession, when they heard this confession of the demon, they broke down. They began to weep. This duel between the demon and the Yerunda lasted more than 2 hours. The demon revealed its methods and how it influenced people to bicker among them, to have arguments and divisions. He revealed that he was behind all of this. He was behind the criticism of priests. He got people to criticize priests, especially those that are shaven. And the beautiful thing was that there were many faithful of the old calendar there as well. And they heard from the mouth of Satan that he was the one telling them to criticize the shaven priests and the priests of the new calendar. And these poor people were swallowing their tongues because a few days prior to this, they were questioning the Yerunda, nailing him to the cross with a number of questions like, how come you're cooperating with new calendar people? And how come you're going to new calendar churches? And so on and so forth. In the first place, why is he talking to a demon for more than 2 hours and asking the demon's plans? I have a vague recollection that in this marginally important book of we call the Acts of the Apostles, we find in chapter 16, as it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain girl, having a pythonical spirit, that is, a demon, met us, who brought to her masters much gain by divining. The same, following Paul and us, cried out, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High God, who preach unto you the way of salvation. And this she did many days, but Paul being grieved, and turned to the Spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ, to go out from her. They had no real interest in listening to what this demoniac had to say. So my question is, why were they so interested in listening to the demons? And apparently, since this was the demons' plan, the insinuation here is that all of the old calendarists who are attacking the poor beardless priests, the suffering beardless priests with the salaries, attacking them. And, this was all because they were listening to demons. So the demon was he was having a field day. The old calendarists were in obedience to him. It's getting worse. The story gets worse. It doesn't actually, it doesn't make more sense. So we got hundreds of people, including a mixed crowd of new calendarists and old calendarists, and this demon just revealed all his plans, and the old calendarists were all suckers, and now they are all being shamed for some reason by a demon telling all his plans to Elder Ephraim. While they were asking these questions, the Yerunda would not answer, trying not to offend anybody out of politeness. But now Satan comes a couple of days later, and he gives them the best possible sermon on these matters. Now, I'm amazed that the guy who wrote this actually refers to Satan giving them a sermon, but it gets worse. He answered all their questions for the sake of the Yerunda. This evening was a mini Pentecost for Canada and the U.S. That's correct. A demon brought a mini Pentecost for Canada and the U.S. All those who were present became the messengers. They spread this amazing parapsychological event, to use a modern term. This amazing miracle was spread instantly nationwide and beyond. Montreal alone has 90,000 Greek Orthodox, and a pandemonium took place. People were calling from everywhere, requesting to meet the Yerunda. This blessed man who has the power and grace to reveal a demon that was lurking so many years in this girl. I gotta stop for a second, because there are a lot of Greek Orthodox in Canada. There are a lot of true Greek Orthodox in Canada, and there are a lot of people who are elderly who would have been alive for this event. How come nobody's ever talked about this event before till now? With thousands of true Orthodox in Canada, such an event would have caused so much chaos, and it's going to get worse. It's I promise. It's not getting better. That it would be in living memory. We would not be finding this out in 2024 from a translation of a Greek lay preacher who died in 1982. That would be, as he mentions, thousands and thousands of people affected, apparently, by, well, first off, we're dealing with the hundreds. We haven't got to the 1,000 yet. That's the next paragraph. So let's get to that. At any rate, the Yerunda continued that evening with his program while people were flooding the house. Now, again, this is the demon that, the demon of upholding tradition, because I'm not even, remember, we've reduced this at this point to an opinion, while leaving aside the confessors, while leaving aside the martyrs, while leaving aside all the fathers who taught about preserving the tradition of the calendar before the schism even occurred. This is all part of the demon's plan, apparently. This is something you have to consider. This demon, apparently, his whole plan was that Orthodox had to uphold tradition. So apparently, the demon's been working since 1582 when the Pope changed the calendar. The demon got the Orthodox that is ultimately the conclusion you have to draw, because the demon does not just come up with an idea, in 1924. Why would he do that? I mean, obviously, the people were wrong for upholding tradition. So this is a demon of upholding tradition, and we continue. At any rate, the Yerunda continued that evening with his program while people were flooding the house, the program being asking the demon all his evil plans. The girl who had the demon was finally defeated by the Yerunda and waited until the end to take confession from this blessed elder. The Yerunda confessed her for about 2 hours, and then he left, and the next day he went to the Church of the Annunciation in Montreal, a very large church with the capacity to handle over 1,000 people. So now we've gone from hundreds of people to a church that is generally says there, regardless of the fact that they don't know what they believe in. The fact is the churches are full on Sundays. Okay, so we can safely assume that in the 24 hours of these events, over 1,000 people, probably closer to 1,500, have all seen this. And nobody's heard of it until it was translated by Father Peter from Greek in Greece in 2024, or Constantine Zalalas. Regardless, the point is nobody has heard of this event, but we continue. These people do go to church, unlike here in Greece, where most people are unchurched. On that particular Sunday, the demon-possessed lady was there, and she took Holy Communion. And after she took Holy Communion, the demon inside of her began to scream and shout. So I guess the communion activates the demon again, and he's ready. He's ready to yell, and he was saying, I am he, not she. I am he. I am he who directs you to criticize the shaven priests. I am he who teaches you to criticize the ecumenical patriarch. I am he who blinds you and turns you upside down with the calendar issue, and so on and so forth. The demon is upholding tradition here, the tradition of the Universal Church. Worth noting that the overwhelming majority of Orthodox throughout the world are still holding to the traditional calendar. This demon is on their side. The demon is basically he's the reason they're doing it. It's incredible. This had the effect of a thunderbolt on these thousands of believers. Confirmed, it was over 1,500, thousands of believers, all in 24 hours. This shocking, amazing event, the demonic new Pentecost, because of the demon of upholding tradition. They were in shock hearing a real demon roar and grumble and speak in a male voice coming out of this poor girl. I am he. This amazing occurrence, this mini Pentecost, served as the seal of approval and opened the door for the Yerunda in the Western Hemisphere. All of the above from the simple Yerunda, the simple monk with no possessions, no degrees, no masters and PhDs, no membranes, as we say here in Greek, no apartments, no automobiles, nothing. None of all this, but he has the power and grace from Christ and the Theotokos to bring people to tears and to terrify, to bring the faithful to tears, to terrify the evil people and the demons. This powerful message was given by Mr. Panagopoulos while visiting the monastery of Philotheu on the Holy Mountain. So, with that, I think I've kind of addressed my objections with this bizarre letter. I think while I was reading it, between the fact that the author of the text sees interrogation and questioning of a demon's plans as some sort of Pentecost, is disturbing enough. That this demon is apparently speaking to people who want to uphold tradition, apparently without their knowledge, so he's doing that. And meanwhile, at the same time, this is an event that goes on for thousands of people within a 1-day period, a 24-hour period, and nobody's heard of it until it just so happens that a bunch of people are leaving for true Orthodoxy. I mean, it could be a complete coincidence. It could be more likely that the story was absolutely unbelievable and Orthodox ethos has nothing left in the tank to defend their borderline heretical ecclesiology. It could be that they're just really desperate to promote the cultus of Father Ephraim with whatever. I once again refer people to the Greek Orthodox, the true Greek Orthodox, in various jurisdictions in Canada. I'd be very surprised if any of them ever heard of this story. And many of them have lived there. This event would have happened, but we're not here. This story was unknown to anyone until some lay preacher in Greece recorded it in 1980, before 1982, when he died, sometime between 1979 and 1982, and before Father Ephrem, for a short period, joined the Russian church abroad and broke communion with the ecumenical patriarch. Now, that's the biggest one, because I would think if I was a holy elder and I had somehow sort of semi-exorcised the demon, but not really, because obviously when I gave him communion, he's back. I would think that if I experienced this and it happened exactly as described, I would be terrified to leave the ecumenical patriarch. I would be like, if I believed the demon, which I wouldn't, because who listens to demons? But the point is, I wouldn't go rushing away from the ecumenical patriarch in 1990, which is what Father Ephrem did. Like, I would have that memory pretty fresh in my head. So there's a lot of inconsistencies with the story, and I think that's part of the reason. I have no doubt, because I have seen some of just a small smidgen of the fantastical literature that New Calendarists will write about true Orthodoxy in Greece. Very little of it is translated. Most of it sounds insane. This is kind of part of that corpus of literature. But it sounds insane and desperate. And I think many Greek people see that, and that's why true Orthodoxy is growing everywhere, including in Greece, by a substantial amount. So my thinking is that they basically are at a kind of a desperation point, and since the fighting from within weird ecclesiology thing is starting to be revealed for what it is, which is canonically untenable, they're now just switching to old calendarists are demoniacs. Because that story probably was told somewhere in Greece. I don't know where. I don't know how long. I don't know if this Demetrius Katsopoulos fellow actually said it. I don't know where it came from. What I do know is it's translated by Constantine Zalos. That's all I know. We don't know when. We don't know how. We just know it just showed up on Father Peter's website, Orthodox Ethos Today. And that is it. That said, the story is absolute nonsense. And if it's not nonsense, then it's even worse, because you have the elder listening to a demon's plan. I don't know why the demon would tell the truth. Just absolute insanity. This was an awful letter, and frankly, it just shows the level of desperation that Orthodox Ethos' team has come to, that they now have to start referring to true Orthodox as demoniacs. Now, ironically, that's kind of the position that you would kind of find from the early persecutors of the true Orthodox of Greece when they were killing people. So the point is that I would say that this is kind of, I think, heading in that direction. I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to get violent on the true Orthodox or anything. I don't know. I don't think so. But I'm just saying, you never know. You never know. Personally, I'd be very careful. Again, that letter is on their website, this article, for everyone to see. But read it carefully, you'll realize that doesn't sound like anything good, anything holy, or to some degree, anything real. So I'm going to take that off the screen real quick. I'm going to go through some comments. We'll see if there's any questions. I am not addressing all the comments today. And then we'll probably just say goodnight. All right, let me see here. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of gross. Okay, there's a lot of comments, guys. But in any case, I'm looking for questions. me see here. If I'm not addressing most of them, there's a reason. It is frankly that the subject matter is very succinct. Just see here. Okay, it looks like I'm not seeing any questions. Let me see here. Okay. God bless all of those who were listening. Yeah, this is yeah. Okay, so I don't see any questions. It is what I saw someone say fan fiction. I hate to say this, but that's what this feels like. It feels like Elder of Friend fan fiction. But in any case, what was going through the layman's head writing? I don't know. I don't even know if he wrote it. I don't know anything about it. Yeah. So that's all I've got to say. I don't see. Okay, Gregory DeCoplete says, question: are you familiar with exorcists binding demons and talking to them? Yes, I am. I do know how the rite of exorcism works. That said, I've never heard of a demon that says nonstop truth that just happens to be on the side of a specific group that's there, implying that he's been guiding all of them. So I know what you're trying to do, Gregory, and I will address your video about the elders, but I will not do that today. But in any case, yeah, this is very sad. But other than that, what is even the authenticity of this document? Ultimately, that's a question for Father Peter, not for myself. It looks like that's everything. I appreciate everyone's comments. Okay, yeah, please address if it's something on the cafe. Please address it on the cafe. Otherwise, I won't see it. But yeah, okay, this is a lot. There's a lot of back and forth here. I'm going to ignore that. I want to say thank you to everyone for listening. For those who had questions, those who support our mission, support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at NFTU.net, on GiveSend, or on Odyssey. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe through the prayers of Holy Fathers, which Jesus Christ our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. Okay, yeah.